We have David Hayter on MGS3 Remake, which is Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. I believe part 1 of this came out months ago, and I obviously didn't watch it at the time. And also part 2 came out recently. We watched the trailer for Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta, or Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, because they don't want to call it Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta, meaning an improved version of something. Let's not go into science and mathematics. It is completely a branding, marketing sort of thing, but let's just call it Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. Let's check it out. Of course, as people that have been in the Metal Gear Solid franchise know, David Hayter voices Snake, Big Boss, and Solid Snake. Obviously, I'm not going to go into spoiler territory for the people that haven't played the games, but if you haven't played the games or haven't watched the LP, I highly recommend it. Awesome franchise. Even Metal Gear Solid 3 as a standalone is great. It's even better if you have context from Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. But if you're going to have to pick one to see what it's all about, Metal Gear Solid 3 is a safe bet, which is why I say I'd be shocked if Konami doesn't throw all the resources they have at their disposal for a Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. Because if you want to do anything with the franchise, you have to ace this one. If you f*** up Metal Gear Solid 3, you're basically dead. You have a playlist in your gaming channel? Yep, I have a playlist for every single Metal Gear Solid game that I've played on the gaming channel. So go nuts, enjoy it. I played Metal Gear Solid 1 Twin Snakes, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, and we were streaming Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain a few months ago. We haven't completed it yet. I've uploaded Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, which you should watch in between Metal Gear Solid 3 and 4, and I need to also upload Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, which also needs to be consumed in between Metal Gear Solid 3 and 4. So it is a big rabbit hole, but it is an amazing one. So I'm really hoping that Konami aces Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, because if they don't, the franchise is basically dead. Like, it's a make it or break it moment. But from what I did hear, they are reusing the original voice recordings, which is good, since all they have to do is color in between the lines. And if they're reusing the old recordings, it means they haven't changed any of the dialogue, thank God. Because don't touch it. Don't touch the dialogue. Don't touch the script. Don't touch the codec calls. It's fine. Leave it. You know? And they're reusing the original recordings, which is a good sign. Just fix up the physics engine. You're using Unreal Engine 5. Good shit. Modernize it. Fix it up. Make it for, 4K, 8K, whatever. Bring it today. Leave the story. Leave the music. Leave all that stuff. Don't try to get creative. You're not good at that. Just fix up the gameplay and the visuals. Don't touch the rest. All right? If they can ace that, they've got this in the bag. It's that simple. If they ace that, they've got this in the bag. If they don't, they've basically F their IP. I mean, look, man, Konami, you got to be careful with these guys. You got to be careful with these guys.
I'm David Hayter, the voice of Solid Snake, Old Snake, and Big Boss. Whether you're a longtime Metal Gear Solid fan or your mission has just begun, we're pulling out all the stops to make the legendary franchise more enjoyable than ever before. Metal Gear was first released in 1987 on the MSX2, and while the game was well received, nobody knew just how far the Metal Gear franchise would go. When Metal Gear Solid hit the scene in 1998, it became an instant global phenomenon. Critics called it innovative, a cinematic classic, technically stunning, and even the best video game ever made. The game found millions of fans worldwide. The sequels received equally widespread acclaim, ultimately growing into a franchise that has reshaped the gaming world and remained relevant for decades. Metal Gear Solid gave rise to a new genre of stealth video games, and with select Metal Gear Solid titles, additional bonus content, and a breathtaking remake of a beloved fan favorite on the way. This is the Metal Gear Solid experience you've been waiting for. What makes a franchise legendary? There's no franchise quite like Metal Gear Solid. It stands on its own as one of the most fun, richly layered, and brilliantly written video game series of all time. And as with most masterpieces, diving in as a new fan can be a bit daunting. For starters, you've got shadow organizations, secret agents, double agents, triple agents, non-linear timelines, giant nuclear weapons, clones, and multiple characters named Snake. Fortunately, this first collection sets players on the right path. The Master Collection Volume 1 includes emulations of the original PlayStation versions of Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, and Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. These 3 games, all available for the first time on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5 and 4, Xbox Series X and S, and Steam.
You know why I'm so like, you can't trust Konami? Because you gotta be careful with these guys. When they released the HD Collection Metal Gear Solid 3, they didn't even sync the opening movie to the song Snake Eater. Because clearly there was no quality control and the people that were working on it had no idea what they were working on. That's why I'm saying you gotta be careful with Konami. You gotta be careful with these guys!
Are the perfect place to hone your stealth skills on solo missions and become the legendary soldier you were born to be. The collection will also include the 2 regional versions of Metal Gear. Fans of the franchise know that if we were to go into a full exploration of everything that makes this franchise legendary, this video could play non-stop for days on end. Instead, we'll focus on a handful of elements that make Metal Gear uniquely Metal Gear. Let's start with some of the innovative and iconic gameplay. Fans know this story is loaded with fun, random things you'd never expect in a high-stakes espionage thriller. For example, you have a boss called Psycho Mantis who can read your mind. That is if you haven't removed your PlayStation's memory card, but what would be the fun in that? You can break out of prison with nothing but a bottle of ketchup. And there's even a secret theater in Metal Gear Solid 3 that plays every cutscene in the game. Of course, that only scratches the surface.
Actually, what really kills you on that one is you have to first see the cutscenes, and on particular boss fights, there's multiple outcomes. And at that time, no one will actually tell you how to unlock all the different cutscenes, and not everyone on the internet at that time unlocked all the cutscenes. So if you were playing the game when it was current, there were several cutscenes that no one knew how to unlock. And then some random guy was doing a boss fight and then saved at the boss fight and didn't rock up for 3 weeks, turned it back on and said, "Hey guys, I just got a secret cutscene of the boss dying of old age." Literally, that's how it was discovered. That's Kojima, ladies and gentlemen.
The developers knew that even serious games had to be fun, and they delivered. They also delivered on overarching elements that have come to define the game and make their way into popular culture, such as codec calls used to relay critical intel on your mission, constant, high-stakes situations, and a storyline full of twists and turns that keeps players on their toes. Symbols from the game have also come to define the franchise. Even something as simple as this. In a game where your survival depends on your stealth capabilities, the cardboard box is a perfect way to avoid guards, cameras, and enemy traps. You'll just feel more comfortable in the box.
You know, you think this is actually funny, but in the US military, they were doing SEAL training, and the SEALs needed to infiltrate a place. They had regular army guys, you know, sentries and cameras and everything. And the SEALs needed to find a way to infiltrate this thing. It was an exercise. You know how they did it? They used the cardboard box. They each got a cardboard box and they were moving inside the box. And the regular army grunts never realized that these boxes were moving. So they infiltrated this mock facility using cardboard boxes. Because one of the guys on the SEAL team just so happened to be playing Metal Gear Solid when he was younger. Most people don't know that, but it's pretty fucking hilarious.
Sorry. It became an essential tool for Solid Snake, and a bit of an unexpected hit among fans. Some symbols that began in Metal Gear Solid have even made their way into the wider world beyond the Metal Gear franchise. Metal Gear has become so iconic that something as simple as an exclamation point, used as a device to alert players that their enemy has either spotted them or has been distracted.
You know, you will see that on Japanese TV. They use that sound with the exclamation point non-stop on Japanese television.
Has found its way into the wider world beyond Metal Gear, appearing in other video games and even in feature films. Solid Snake is only one iteration of Snake. You remember when I said this could go on for days? Well, a few of those days could be spent discussing the snakes alone. So, here's the simple version. The original Snake was born in 1935. He was a man named John, codenamed Naked Snake, later earning the moniker Big Boss. This essentially sets the stage for a wild ride of insane character dynamics, unpredictable family drama, and epic plot twists that have captivated players for generations and continues to do so to this day. But brace yourselves, because this epic collection is just the beginning. Everything you love about Metal Gear started here, but it's about to get even better. Coming up, we'll delve into the epic, long-awaited remake of what many fans consider to be the best game in the entire franchise. And until then, this is Snake, signing off.
What was my initial reaction to Snake hiding under the cardboard box? A little bit. See, here's the thing. I started with Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. So, being a first-time player of Metal Gear Solid, a little bit like Raiden, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And seeing a guy in a cardboard box, I was like, what the fuck is this? A little bit like Raiden, right? And my first instinct as a gamer is to unload my entire magazine into the box, shooting it as quickly as humanly possible. But clearly, you can do this inside the game, because the person hiding under the box starts running away. And even if you unload your entire magazine, reload, and continue to unload, you will notice that you've destroyed so many layers of the box, but the person is still under a box. Because it's a box within a box within a box within a box within a box. And no matter how quickly you fire, you can never actually hit the person under the box, because there's so many layers of boxes. So that was my initial reaction. Shoot it. That was my initial reaction. It's like, this is so ridiculous. But, like, you know, clearly, if it works, it works. All right. Part 2. Clearly, part 1 was just an advertisement for the HD re-release. But, like, you know, let's see what part 2 is, if it actually includes anything. It says new footage and details. Please.
What does it
Here's clearly using green screens.
take for a remake to become truly legendary? I think you're gonna like what you find. Remaking a beloved classic is like sneaking into a secret weapons facility. One little misstep could mean disaster. You have to keep everything that fans love: the story, characters, gameplay, music, and of course, voice acting.
There's going to be one problem, though. The original Metal Gear Solid theme was actually copyrighted by a Russian composer that made the chorus about 20 years before the original Metal Gear Solid theme. And because of that, the original Metal Gear Solid theme stopped being used in Metal Gear Solid 4 and Metal Gear Solid 5. So when you're listening to all the themes in Metal Gear Solid 4, you will never actually hear the original Metal Gear Solid theme, because Konami doesn't own the rights to it, because it was basically stolen. So what are you going to do? If you can't use that theme, what are you going to do? Are you going to buy it off the original composer's family, or like, what's going to happen? Interesting question.
But at the same time, enhance it for modern audiences. Not an easy job. So let's dive deeper, and what better place to start than the completely overhauled look?
No, there is one way to do it, and I'll give you the cheat code for making this a success. Back in PlayStation 2, one of the most impressive things about the game was the jiggle physics. The boobs had amazing physics. Now, we went through Nier Automata. You basically just got to get Yoko Taro and whoever the fuck made Stellar Blade and get them in on the project and ensure that the boob physics are 100% on point. That's all you got to do. Get the boob physics right. I'm telling you now. That's going to be a make it or break it moment.
Delta is built in Unreal Engine 5 to achieve an unbelievable level of detail.
Yes, but are the boobs realistic? That's the real question.
All the iconic characters are better than ever, with completely revamped models. Snake is brought to life with extreme realism, incorporating minute details like wrinkles and pores, and even separating the eye and iris. all of which allows us to create visually richer characters. We've also upgraded the battle damage system. Tears, bruises, and bullet holes mar Snake in real time, telling the story of each player's unique gameplay choices. The injuries on your body remain throughout your journey. And the rest of the iconic characters, like the boss, return in style.
One really interesting part about this bridge in particular, if you're playing the game, you see how it's got different rope? And the bridge is probably like 20, 30, 40, 50 meters long, right? If you cut multiple ropes, the bridge actually moves around a lot more. If you cut all of the rope, the bridge moves around so much that you just keep slipping off it and you die. This is back in PlayStation 2. The real question is going to be, if we play this game and I start shooting the rope, will the same thing happen? Because if it doesn't, I'm going to Konami and I'm going to start slapping people. Because clearly, they haven't played the original. I mean, played the original. Not like played through the original. I mean fucking played with the original. Did shit for shits and giggles. Like putting C3 under piles of unconscious enemy soldiers to see how high in the sky they'll go when you detonate. Or, you know what I mean? Like, what will happen if you destroy all their food rations? How hungry can a person really be? You know, shit like that. Like, fucking Hunger Games level. What is C3? Well, you know it nowadays as C4. It's an explosive. It's a plastic explosive that you can mold. Back in the day, during the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, they had the C3 version, which was a lot more volatile and a lot easier to detonate. Whereas C4 is a lot more difficult to detonate because you need an electrical charge. But anyway, let's not get too into it. C3 is the old school C4 explosive.
While retaining the original landscape, the thick vegetation of the jungles, forests, and swamps have been completely remade with cutting-edge detail. Every inch of the world has been rebuilt to make the Cold War look beautiful. At least as beautiful as it can be, as you sneak into the jungle. Just make sure to pick the right gear for the job and use your highly advanced stealth training. Metal Gear Solid 3 took gaming to a new level of cinematic storytelling. Delta breathes new life into every cutscene with dynamic lighting, detailed facial animation, and improved sound design. Yet it remains completely faithful, shot for shot, and with nearly all of the original voice acting. Even for longtime fans, watching these updated scenes is like experiencing them for the first time. Commencing virtuous mission now.
The big thing, and this is going to be a really big thing, in the original Metal Gear Solid 3 on PlayStation 2, if you did certain things in the game and called certain people, you would trigger certain unique dialogue. That's going to be the real big thing. Do the people that are remaking this thing know about all the specific dialogue and how to trigger it? Because some of the dialogue that you unlock this way actually gives you confirmation of what's going on in the broader world. By which I mean, if you didn't trigger a certain piece of dialogue, you wouldn't know that a certain character is related to another character. Yeah, that's like a piece of dialogue that's triggered. You don't get that during the story. And you wouldn't know unless you played around with the game and you triggered certain dialogue. That's how deep this game frickin' is.
So, I know what you probably want to hear the most about. How does the game play? Whether you're old school or playing for the first time, Delta has the best of both worlds. With Legacy style, the game plays like the original, with similar overhead camera and controls. But if you're used to modern shooters, we offer new style, with a controllable third-person camera. Both options maintain that trademark Metal Gear Solid stealth action. This is the game you remember, but massively upgraded. I also have some intel to share. Starting today, you can pre-order MGS Delta at retail partners in the Americas, UK, and EU.
Oh yeah, Australia gets fucked. Thanks, man.
For fans looking for something special, There are also these incredible collector's editions available in the Americas.
Yay! Thank you, you cunts. You see, Australia gets fucked so much that I remember back when I was in high school when I was playing Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 and 1 as well, they had like Metal Gear Solid, not like action figures, but you know how in Japan you get the models, the plastic models and stuff? They had the same thing, but it was made in America. So it wasn't the same as like the anime figures. It's slightly different, but sort of similar, the same thing, right? And I wanted to order them, but you could only basically get them through Amazon, and Amazon wasn't available in Australia. So I was trying to get them through eBay, but the shipping was like $150 each. And the thing only cost like fucking $10. So it's just like... And then if you wanted to get Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, it was never actually released in Australia. But because we use the PAL system, you can't just buy an American copy and play it on your Nintendo Gamecube. You had to actually get it from the UK. So I want to buy a $20 game, but it has to come from the UK and I got to pay shipping. So what do? Well, like any fan of any franchise, you buy a fucking new console and you import the game from another country and you pay $50 in shipping because you love the fucking franchise. That's me in a nutshell.
I'm joined by special guest, producer Noriaki Okamura. Okamura-san, thank you so much for joining us. So please tell us a little bit about your role on this project.
By the way, now that you've made yourself known, every single Metal Gear Solid fan is going to hold you accountable if you fuck this up. And I just want you to realize they are trained in espionage. In the famous words of some abridged series that I can't remember, don't fuck up. Will you be going for the Legacy or New Style? I will probably switch between the two of them, just for shits and giggles. Just to like sort of try the old style, because I have played the old style in Metal Gear Solid 3 HD, which we did like a year or two ago. But I do want to test out the new style as well, because a lot of the times when I am shooting in the old style, I'm always shooting in FPS mode. I never sort of shot in third person mode and started running around in full auto, because I want to be accurate. I don't want to just spray and pray. That doesn't work for me. So whenever I played in the old mode, I was shooting in FPS anyway. If I'm playing it in the third-person mode, I'm basically playing it Metal Gear Solid 5 style. At least I think that's what they're going for, because they did that in Metal Gear Solid 5. If you want to be like right-handed, left-handed, right shoulder, left shoulder, it's basically Metal Gear Solid 5. If you guys don't know what Metal Gear Solid 5 plays like, it plays like that game that everyone's playing now, Helldivers. That's basically Metal Gear Solid 5.
30年以上コナミで働いてます。で、入社当時はポリスノーツというタイトルを。
Police Noughts is a game that Kojima worked on back in the day. There's a lot of references in the Metal Gear Solid franchise to Police Noughts. So the fact that he worked on Police Noughts in Konami 30 years ago means that he actually worked under Kojima.
やってました。で、メタルギア関係もいくつか参加してて、ポータブルオプスとかバンドデシネは私が直接プロデュースしたタイトルです。で、マスターコレクション今回デルタ、これに関してはですね、メタルギアとしては10年ぶり以上のプロデュース作品になります。
Here's the real question. Did you work on Metal Gear Solid Survive? Be honest, because if you did, I'm throwing you out a window.
Are there any original Metal Gear staff left on Delta and the Master Collection? And what made you come back to the project?
Okay, for context, during Metal Gear Solid 5, Konami was so pissed with Kojima that anyone that worked with Kojima under him in the previous games was basically demoted in the company. So you had software developers that were cleaners. And they basically did this so they will quit the company without being fired. Because quitting in Japan is considered a mark of shame. So they basically bullied these people into doing shit like cleaning, even though they were software developers and producers. That's how much they had it out for Kojima and anyone that was part of his original team. So, for context, original members from those teams that are still in Konami is like sus.
僕も含めてですね、当時から引き続いてメタルギアの制作に、関わっている人間というのはもちろん多いんですけど、当然辞められた方ということも多いです。で、
I wonder why.
関わっておられない方々についてはですね、もちろん新しい場所で活躍をされていらっしゃるので、今回の作品に関わられるということはありません。
There's this new company called Kojima Productions. You might have heard of it.
そんな状況でもなんでやるようにしたのかということなんですけど、これについてはもともとも若い世代がですねたくさん出てきていて、ネットの中でももうメタルギアって何っていう知らないよっていう方が多くなってきたんですよね。オリジナルのねスタッフの方々が作られたメタルギア、これを後世に残していくということが僕たちの使命だというふうには思ってるんですね。
You looked it up, and yep, he is credited as producer for Metal Gear Survive. Is Metal Gear Survive like a spin-off? They wanted it to be a sequel to Metal Gear Solid 5. And they made it about zombies. I'm worried.
それがメタルギアをまた始めようと思った理由になります。
How did you settle on these games, Delta and the Master Collection?
ですね、マスターコレクションの、制作の経緯からまずお話しますと、数年前にですねメタルギアのストアからですね、実はメタルギアって結構いろいろなものが取り下げられているんですね。で、こうなった理由っていうのが、いわゆるもう結構昔何十年も前のゲームなので、特にその映像の権利回り、実写映像とかの権利回りでこのまま、出し続けることはできないっていう、そういった状況になったことがあったんです。で、もちろんですね早く出し直してくれっていうファンの方々の、要望はものすごく多かったので、なんとか我々も頑張ってたんですけど、どうせ出し直すんだったらその昔のハードで出し直しても、今の人たち遊べなくなっちゃうので、なので、やっぱり、今お客さんの手元にあるハードでやっぱ出し直しをするべきだというふうに思ったんですね。これがマスターコレクションプロジェクトが発足した経緯です。
I love how they don't even mention the HD release or the legacy release. It's the Master Collection. The HD release had so many fucking issues. Then they did the Legacy Collection, which basically has everything that's in the Master Collection, but they pretend that never happened because that also had issues. That's why everyone's a bit like, ugh, Konami! For context, there's been a few problems in the journey so far. That's why everyone's like, what the F is Konami even doing with this franchise? And the reason why they got pulled was you had Metal Gear Solid 2 that has real life footage from like museums and historical websites and stuff. But no one in Konami realized that these things had like, I think 20 years or something rights to be used. And that ran out in like 2019. And because they weren't keeping track of what's going on and they basically fired everyone that worked on these games, it basically just went under the radar until Konami started getting legal notices that they're using footage that they no longer have the rights to. And then they basically just pulled it from the PSN store. They were like, holy shit, we had no idea this was happening. How could this happen without our knowledge? Well, you just fucking fired everyone that worked on the game. I wonder how that happened. So, like, there's been a little bit of in Konami. Fun fact, a friend of mine actually worked in Konami and now works for Kojima Productions. And he's in Japan. I'm going to have to meet up with him next time I'm there.
で発売した時に、バグとかですね、操作性の不備とか解像度問題、いろいろな問題で、結構厳しいご意見をいただくということになってしまった。
Bugs and playability issues is an understatement. Kojima Productions is a good place to work. That's what I'm going to ask him.
があります。これは本当に申し訳ないと思ってます。で、
Yeah, you should be sorry. You son of a bitch.
これらの問題については、今も対応を続けていて、
Does anyone notice the gecko in the background? Anyone notice the gecko? Yeah, if you shoot all of those geckos, there's a gecko in every single area of the game. If you shoot all of them, you get stealth camo. Or you play through the entire game without triggering a single alert, you get stealth camo. I did it, and I missed one. F my life.
まだ続けている最中なんですけどやってます。で、この先ですね10年20年経っても、メタルギア遊び続けていただきたいので、そういったものにしたいということで、今も作業しているのですいません、もう少しお時間をいただきたいなと思ってます。で次にメタルギアソリッドデルタの方の経緯ですけど、こちらはもともと2D から 3D になって、映画の表現力っていうのは変わっていってるわけですね。で
Okay, one thing I have to ask you because you were showing off the helicopter. If I get an SVD and I shoot the pilot 3 times, will it crack through the window and take him out, like in the original? It's little shit like that that's make it or break it. Can I still do the shit that I did back in the day?
メタルギアに関しても最初はドット絵の 2D のゲームだったものが 3D になり、もう映画のような表現力を備えたものになっていった。逆に言うとそのメタルギアの歴史っていうのはそのままビデオゲームの歴史なんじゃないかなっていうふうに思ってるんですね。なので、マスターコレクションというのはある意味それを追体験、ゲームの進化を追体験していただきたいというふうなそんな形で思ってますので、これは逆に、昔からのまま出すことが意味があるというふうに思ってます。なのでこれは過度にいろいろ変えたりしないでですね、ドット絵はドット絵のまま3D の荒いグラフィックのままで出すべきだって僕は思ってます。でただ当然のことながらその若い世代のお客様がたくさん増えてきている中で昔のゲームをそのまま出してそれでいいのかっていうのもあると思います。でそういった意味で、メタルギアに関してもそのゲームの内容とかシナリオ、あとは、キャスト声とかですね、そういったものはこれは手を加えることなく、今のグラフィックの基準であるとかですね、操作性にも関しても今変わってきているので、そういった部分だけを変えて、でも、ゲームそのもののゲーム性、オリジナルスタッフの方々のクリエイティビティの部分、ここに関しては変えないっていうふうに、する、そういったシリーズもやっぱりこれは必要だろうというふうに思いました。デルタを作ったのはそういった意味ですね。でメタルギアサーガ壮大です。こちらの方の新たに触れる最初の一作は何だろうなと思ったんですけど、やっぱスネークイーターが一番最適なのじゃないかなと思ってこういった形にしました。
Anything else you want to share with the fans?
そうですね、メタルギアの再始動を始めた我々の、新しいチームもですね、これをもう本当にこの先メタルギアを託すにふさわしいチームかどうかっていうことは、これはもうファンの皆様が、どうか厳しい目で見定めていただきたいと思ってます。
They realize that it's make it or break it. If you fuck up Metal Gear Solid 3, forget about the rest. They realize this. That's good. That's good. Because they're not arrogant enough to believe that they can just do whatever they want and people will buy it up. They actually realize the gravity of the situation, that it's make it or break it. If they ace this, they're basically going to get a green light to do Metal Gear Solid 1 or 2, probably Portable Ops and Peace Walker. If they F this up, the series is basically dead. And so this team is basically, if they ace this, they've got a job. If they fail this, they might get fired. So, you know what I mean? They're at least self-aware of how important this game is and the remake is. Yeah. And that's good. That's good. Because when they did the HD release, they figured that the reputation of the game would carry it. And it did because people bought it. And then they released Legacy. And it did because people bought it. But then they got crucified online. And everyone was just basically telling Konami to F themselves. And online, Konami just, you know, in terms of brand recognition and reputation, Konami went from one of the big AAA developers to just basically having a horrible reputation. And then whatever the F they did with Silent Hill, I hadn't even played it, but from what I heard from Silent Hill fans, they also effed up the IP on the HD release of Silent Hill 2 and 3. And then they lost the source code to Silent Hill 2, and then all this other stuff. And so they basically re-released in HD their popular titles, but they didn't have quality control. So all the old customers and, you know, fans that bought it were pissed off about it. And all the new fans didn't actually get to experience it in all its glory. So they didn't turn into hardcore fans. So not only did they piss off their existing fan base, but they failed to capture new customers, which as a business is basically suicide. So I hope that they actually realize now how important it is to actually care about the product. Because so far, Konami has just basically been milking their IPs and living off past glory. You can't run a company like that for long. It will eventually just die. And that's what started happening. That's why they're like, oh, we're going to do Silent Hill. And it's like, you got to be careful with this one, because if you do it well, you're going to revitalize the company. You're going to get back all those old fans and you're going to get new fans, because there is an appetite for horror. Just look at what Capcom's doing. People are loving Resident Evil because they went back to their origin, their horror roots. But the game that has a stronger reputation than Resident Evil in horror is Silent Hill. If you can ace that, you're good. And then they're like, we're remaking it for modern audiences. And it's like, shit. You know what I mean? Like, when you think of Silent Hill, you don't think of, like, diversity and shit. You think of, like, hell and horrible monsters that are out to kill you. When you think of Metal Gear Solid, you don't think of diversity and shit. You think of life-changing stories that will basically make you question everything you believe. You gotta ace that. You can't modernize it. So it's good that they actually realize how important this is. And it's also good that he kind of admitted, yeah, there were issues in the HD release. Yeah, there were playability issues, and we apologize for that, and we're working to fix those. Good, you acknowledge the problem. You didn't just sweep it under the rug. I can appreciate that. But at the same time, okay, you're aware of the problems, you acknowledge the problems, and you apologize. I accept that. What are you going to do about it? We're working on this remake. Okay, you're working on this remake. You know how important it is. You know how vital it is for the survival of the company and the IP to ace this. Cool. Balls in your court. Don't fuck up. That's basically hardcore Metal Gear Solid fans in a nutshell. Balls in your court. You've got a shot. Don't fuck it up. Like, it's that simple.
Thank you so much, Okamura-san. Arigatou gozaimasu.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
If you fuck this up, like, forget about working at Konami. You're not going to get a job in the gaming industry at all.
Since its release, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater has defined itself as one of the most influential and impactful video games of all time. With Delta, fans can expect an unbelievably detailed update to this classic. Both newcomers and longtime players alike can experience this masterpiece like never before. This is the definitive, once-in-a-generation remake you don't want to miss.
It's high stakes. It is 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, high stakes. If they ace it, Konami can very easily come back on top. It's going to be hard for them because you've got Kojima Productions, you've got the guys doing Stellar Blade, you've got Capcom, and they're outputting good shit. They're outputting good shit. And then you've got, I forget what they're called, the guys that did Elden Ring. They're doing good shit, right? You got, I think it was like BioWare or something that did Fallout. They fucked up with their recent Fallout game. They can turn it around if they actually start, fixing up their problems, and they can come back on top. And if Konami can actually ace the Metal Gear Solid IP and fix up whatever the F they're doing with Silent Hill, they can come back on top. They can go back to being a hard-hitting AAA company that's pulling in a crap ton of revenue. Because you ace this, you've got potential movie rights. You've got potential TV show rights. These are big franchises with a huge fan base. You know what I mean? Kuma, now you know how Final Fantasy VII fans felt about Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. Please don't mess this project up and revive the series. But here's the thing. Final Fantasy never collapsed. Final Fantasy had other games. Final Fantasy still had other titles which people loved. I hear good things from Final Fantasy VIII. I hear good things about Final Fantasy X. I hear good things about, like other Final Fantasies. The problem that happened with Metal Gear Solid was that the guy that was working on it left the company and it was dead in the water. Whereas Final Fantasy still had a dev team that was pumping content and creating games. And yes, they did have a problem with, I think it was like Final Fantasy 14 or 13 or 15, something like that. There was this huge kerfuffle where they put in a fuck ton of money and then they released it and then it wasn't good and then they pulled it and then they apologized and they put even more money into it. But Final Fantasy as a franchise wasn't dead in the water. The thing with Metal Gear Solid is that it's been dead in the water. And then the next title they created after the original guy left the company was a piece of fucking shit. It wasn't a Metal Gear Solid game. It was a zombie game that they took the Metal Gear Solid brand and stamped it on a zombie game and tried to pass it off as a Metal Gear Solid game and then started charging people for save files. That's like fucking Konami. And then they took Metal Gear Solid 3, which they're releasing now, and put it in a fucking slot machine. That's why Konami got eviscerated online. Because not only did they start making bad moves, but then they started blaming the fans for not supporting them. And you really fucked up when your fans are like, guys, you're doing the wrong thing. And then the people are like, no, F you. You fans are the problem. We're not out of touch. You're out of touch. And it's like, this is your loyal fan base. These are people that are buying fucking consoles to play your game. And you're attacking them? Holy shit. Like, you've completely gone off the rails. So I don't think Square Enix ever went into that situation. And even if Final Fantasy, I get it. Final Fantasy VII is the golden child. If Square Enix is ever about to go bankrupt, just fucking remake Final Fantasy VII and you're good. But Square Enix didn't just have Final Fantasy. They also had Kingdom Hearts. And they're making a fuck ton of money off that. And that sort of links into Final Fantasy as well. It sort of incorporates Final Fantasy and Disney. But you know what I mean? They had more than just one franchise going for them. So they never really dropped off. Whereas Konami kind of fucked themselves. Multiple franchises. And I think Konami also back in the day used to make like football games. People played like FIFA and stuff. I don't know if they're still doing that. But like Konami had a lot of things that they were putting out back in the day in the 90s and the 2000s. And they were like, one of the big dogs. Now they're kind of like, what the fuck are you? AAA, AA? Like, what even are you anymore, Like, do you just make pachinko machines? Or are you still in the gaming industry? It's So now's their opportunity to actually redefine themselves as a player in the gaming market. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, they have Yu-Gi-Oh! Fair enough. But again, you know what I mean? Now they've got an opportunity to be one of the big boys again. If they fuck it up, like, Konami's basically on the way out. That's all I'm saying. All right, cool. Let's take a break. What's next on our schedule? It is currently 6:50. Did I go overtime? 6:30 was supposed to do Spice Wolf with 20-minute overtime because we had discussions, but it's all right. We're going to take a break and we're going to watch some Spice Wolf. This is good. I like this. Like I always say, I just don't want them to rush the release. You're better off pushing back a launch and getting it right instead of launching it early, having bugs, and doing whatever the fuck Cyberpunk was. Just do it right. I don't care if it takes an extra year, 2, 3, 4 years. We've been waiting for fucking decades. Just get it right. That's the most important thing. Getting it right. You fucked the launch, you fucked yourself. I'm sorry to swear, but it's become too common that people release games and they're like, we'll fix it in the patch. No, fix it now. Fix it before you ship it. Fix it. Things not loading? Fix it. Things not shooting? Fix it. Boss fight glitching? Fix it. Like, don't fucking ship an incomplete game. That's become way too common. There's a serious problem in the gaming industry right now. Shipping incomplete product. And then like, oh, we're sorry. Fuck off. Stop saying you're sorry. You should know better than this. Shame on you. Quick little break. We watch some anime. Oh my god.
The world was once one. We will heal that rift and make the world whole again. To do this, we need strength. An unstoppable trump card with enough power to bring order to the world. That trump card was to be the Shago Hod and the Cobra unit.